My one word of advice.
So the course duration.
A Facebook.
Hi there, Siam here.
Trade by trade, so go cling, 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 cling. I've been investing for about 13 odd years, and blockchain is a revolution in trust. So anything that required trust, like banks, like holding your money, or legal documents, or whatever, it's going to go on the blockchain.
In terms of tokenomic change,
Implementation is key.
spent years building this community up. And
Hi there, my name is Siam.
Hope that helps, and yeah, have a good one. Cheers, bye. Some of you know a guy called Riley in the community who makes videos. He's made intro videos for everyone today, and I was bricking it because I only got them like yesterday, and I was like, how are the videos, how are the videos? So I haven't actually seen them. That's the first time I've seen it. So, hey ho. Anyway, I want to talk about why my dad didn't buy Amazon or Apple in the early 2000s and dropped a big one. So basically, most people don't understand the cost of living crisis because, you know, we've all heard of those adages of, oh, one average bloke with an average job could have a massive house and have a big old family and live pretty comfortably, whereas now 2 grown adults have to have a full-time job just to make ends meet. Now, I've covered that in the first bit. Basically, global currency supply is growing, purchasing power is falling. We got that. 15%, hopefully that's in the back of your brain. But the thing is, whenever I value anything, I don't look at the chart against the dollar. I look at it against M2. That's the only way you value something. You don't look at the price of something, you look at the value of something. So when you divide any big asset by M2, you'll see that they've all done bugger all for a long freaking time. Gold. I used to be the 4th biggest gold and silver bullion dealer, online bullion dealer in the UK, because I was like, oh, I love gold and silver. And until I started to understand M2, and I opened this chart, and it was this chart that made me sell up. I sold everything. I was like, right, I'm out. This is like, I'd wasted a good chunk of my life just selling gold and silver and realized that it does nothing. Yeah, it's all relative, of course. You then look at the biggest stock market on the planet, the S&P 500 against M2, and that too, since the 1960s, has done pretty much bugger all, other than the dot-com bubble, which is this thing here, and then World War III, COVID. So, and then you look at house prices. So the UK average house price index against the UK currency supply, basically, unless you've smartly timed these dips and pumps, everyone has lost purchasing power. I don't care whether you bought a house in 2000 for 50 grand and it's now worth 400 grand. You've lost actual purchasing power. That's why I've never bought a house. My wife, for 15 years, has said, let's buy a house this year. Nah. So yeah, I will at some point. I'm really good at kicking that can down the road at the moment. So until you look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the only globally scaled asset on the planet that absolutely destroys M2. And that's a 65,000% growth above M2, which is very impressive. Which is why in 2016, I was like, right, all in on crypto. And you've probably seen this. I've put this quite everywhere, pretty much. Basically, this is a trend that I quite like, that the amount of Bitcoin it will take to buy a UK average price house outright mortgage-free is dropping precipitously. Now, I've been really bad here. I mean, Mark actually made this chart. He took the average house price and then the lowest possible Bitcoin price. And then it was 4.7 to buy a house. And then I did this slide a couple of months ago, and it was 3.07 Bitcoin to buy a house. And I didn't update it last night. It's depressing. It's thereabouts, it'll be fine. But the thing is, what do these big companies, Uber, Airbnb, WeWork, and Bitcoin all have in common? I think you're a pretty smart audience, you probably got it. They're the biggest asset, or they're the biggest company in their respective fields, but they don't own anything. Uber doesn't own any cars, Airbnb doesn't own any hotels, etc., etc. And Bitcoin, it's the world's biggest supercomputer, but it doesn't own any computer. Bitcoin is an incentive layer. Bitcoin has one incentive mechanism. And the incentive mechanism for Bitcoin is, hey, we need compute power. If you provide compute to me, the Bitcoin network, I'm going to give you some Satoshis. That is the reward mechanism there. Give me compute, I give you Satoshis. And so do you think this trend will change with AI? I don't think so. It's a rhetorical question, but I think AI and the future of big, good AI will follow in that suit, in that trend of being decentralized and distributed. And when it comes to investing, I have this mental scaffolding of where I look for growing mountains and then virgin ecosystems within those growing mountains. And so you need to be intellectually curious enough to not mine heavily exhausted mountains. And even now, I still, probably 8 out of 10 people I meet, oh yeah, I buy properties and I do them up and I sell them, or buy to rent, or rent to rent, or all the other property type stuff. But property in the UK is like probably the most exhausted mountain there is. The yields there are very hard to get, as in good yields. Bearing in mind, 15% is the minimum. And you want to make more than 15%, so, let's say 25%. So my personal benchmark is, does it make 25% per year, year after year? And if the answer is no, or maybe in a good year, I'm not interested. So here's a quick recap in trend and hype wave history. In the 1800s, it was oil and railway infrastructure. Anyone that focused on those infrastructures, they made a lot of money. In fact, a lot of the power and control constructs that we see today are from people that absolutely nailed it in the 1800s and late 1800s. Then we had the gold boom, the automobile boom, and then in the 60s to 90s, it was coding and computing. Anyone that nailed coding and computing became billionaires. Steve Wozniak, all those sorts of people. Bill Gates. Well, I guess Bill Gates was in the next one, the internet boom. Actually, no, he was in the 70s and 90s. And then the internet was this massive growing mountain. And within this growing mountain, you had other things that were virgin eco landscapes. Then in 2009, again, the scale it differs, obviously. We then had the iPhone that was launched in 2008, which then meant 1 year later we had the App Store. And it's still, I think, probably one of the biggest income streams for Apple and Android, the App Store. Again, the App Store was a virgin landscape and ecosystem within a growing, booming mountain. Not only was it the internet mountain, it was the mobile phone mountain. And so, of course, anyone around the world could build an app and try and make some money. And then we had crypto, the fastest growing thing in human history. Massive mountain. And then we had this aha moment when ERC20 was launched, and anyone around the world could build a decentralized app in crypto world. So, virgin landscape, massive growing mountain. I went all in on ETH at $9. I remember that, and I remember getting all of RT. I was like, hey, ETH, $9. And that's done pretty well. And then from 2023 onwards, really, for me, I found this thing in November 2023, because I was like, oh, wow, AI is this massive growing mountain. Since 2023, with ChatGPT 3 launching, it's the fastest growing industry ever. And so guess what I was looking for? I was looking for virgin landscapes within this brand new mountain, this growing mountain. And in 2026 onwards, it's all going to be about agents or text to action. It's going to be pretty pants to begin with, but eventually text to action agents will be as good as, hey, please set up a legal business, I don't care what industry, I need $10,000 a month, come up with your own internal metrics, go. And just watch your agent just spin up tens of thousands of side hustles and then deleting things that don't work. And then, I mean, it will get that way. Not soon, but we're trending rapidly towards it. Bipedal robots as well. And then eventually synthetic biology and augmented reality and VR. Like when BMI so brain-machine interface technologies get better, that's when VR really gets going. For years, I've bought the best VR headset every freaking year, and they're all shit. Every year, I'm disappointed because it's a big, heavy thing. It's hard to connect. Yeah, but when you have a BMI in, and they can just flip your reality, it'll be like the Matrix. And then, thanks to Elon, space travel is getting much cheaper. When Starship is fully iterated, the cost of launch is only $2 million because it's the cost of propellant. And you can take 100 tons to orbit for only $2 million of propellant, which is so cheap. And so what I want to do is be that granddad in years to come and have grandkids saying, "Granddad, why are we so rich?" And I'm just going to say, simple. I just bought Tao when everyone was so timid and scared. You have no idea how many DMs I've got in the last week going, "Is Tao okay? Is Tao okay?" I just ignore now. So, as I said, AI has been the fastest growing tech in history since 2023. And we are voyeuristically watching a cross-industry tech orgy unfolding before us. I am so immature. And the resulting offspring will be unimaginable. Now, here's an example. If you went back, I don't know, 10 years and said to someone, grown adults across the world will be running around the streets of wherever they live with their mobile phone looking for mythical monsters, you'd be like, get out of here, no way. Well, Pokemon Go. Now that is, the only reason that existed is because a whole bunch of technologies all converged at the same point. You have mobile phones, you have the geosensors within your phone, you have the optical, the camera in your phone, and all sorts of other things, and internet connectivity. So you had this cross-mingling of technologies which had some bastard offspring called Pokemon Go. And it's only going to get crazier, because we are now on the hockey stick, the J-curve part of exponential growth of a whole bunch of exponent technologies. Additive manufacturing, so 3D printing. Not just building crappy plastic toys, but houses. They've 3D printed organs. So we'll have biological 3D printing. And again, there's a lot less waste with additive manufacturing. I can't wait to buy a proper construction 3D printer. I just want to build a house. I'm going to set up a construction company just for shits and giggles. And put some builders out of work. So no. I want to bring you in on that, don't worry. Cheers. No, I want you to teach the robots. We've got quantum computing, we've got advanced materials, genetic editing. We can now play around with our genome like Lego blocks. It's absolutely fascinating. And biosciences combined with CRISPR, there's pretty much nothing when AI helps us with these biosciences and genetic editing, there's not much we can't do. Space travel, again, is going to unlock all sorts of things. Bipedal robots will be roaming the Earth in a far greater quantity than people can imagine. And really, AI is this accelerator, is this propellant that will accelerate all of these exponential technologies. I mean, all of these would happen without AI, but this is just adding steroids and crack and cocaine and heroin all at the same time to it all. I love the way that Boris says AI.
I love AI. Do you use AI? Absolutely. Do you use ChatGPT? Do you love ChatGPT? I love ChatGPT. I love it. ChatGPT is fantastic.
You love AI? I love AI. But the public are oblivious to this arms race, and it's going to be brutal. There's, for those that know me, I know I've said for a long time, we're going to have insane prosperity where no one has to work, world hunger is solved, but that's in the future, and there's going to be this cavity, this chasm of pain. Now, I don't know if this chasm of pain will last 2 years or 7 years, but it's going to be there because AI is the most hyper-deflationary invention humans have ever created, and it's the last invention humans will create. And there's going to be some hairy times, and I'm just going to take some bullet points out of my book. Some of you have read my book. I've just taken some bullet points out of that just to give you my take on what I think is going to happen. So electrical energy consumption is going to rocket, big time. I won't read it all out. You can read yourself. But there's been all sorts of really good papers out there. Leopold, I forgot the name of his paper. He had some pretty good stats on that. But pictures are easier to show you this. So if you look at American power generation and LLM power projected consumption, do you think US energy production can handle what's about to happen? No, that's why everyone is throwing money at NVIDIA and also power generation. But then when you look at this chart over here, Do you think China is slightly more switched on than the US at the moment? Yeah, massively. Like the US are like deliberating whether we're turning on one nuke or two nuclear reactors. Meanwhile, China are opening up like, 60 a year or something like that. Another way to put this is that every 18 months, China creates as much energy as one United States. Every 18 months. 18 months' time, 2 US. 18 months' time, 3 USs in terms of total power. They're making a whole US worth of energy every 18 months. I can't get my head around that. And it's because they're going where the puck is going. They see the AI consumption, they're trying to meet it. Because it's a new weapon. It's a super weapon. It's a different form of mutually assured destruction. So, and energy will be the biggest bottleneck. It really will. Everyone's going to be racing to have compute clusters. Elon's entered the AI field, over the last, let's say, 3 or 4 years. Already has the biggest supercomputer there is, the Colossus 1 and 2. Basically, he's turned all of Memphis into a data center. And, a bit far-fetched, but if a rebellious AGI suddenly got released onto the internet, the first thing it will look for is energy. So it will probably live in China and then use Bittensor as a buffet of capabilities. Let's fast forward a few bits. Chip production is hard. China has always been threatening to invade Taiwan because of TSMC. And the thing is, to get these chips made, you can't just make a new factory and then, we'll just replace what Taiwan does. It takes 12 years. Some really sexy technology goes into chip making. And AI security. So AI labs are very, very porous. Industrial espionage has never been as high as it is now. And so I see military defense going into companies like OpenAI just to protect secrets and algorithms. Because algos are worth 10 times more than compute. Again, it's just a geopolitical super weapon. I don't want to go too far into that. But it is the most important thing as humans have ever done. It could end us, and it could propel us into a Star Trek type utopia. But either way, on the run up to that, there will be trouble. And also, I worked out that in order to match US GDP, you only need 100 million autonomous AI agents. And when I did that calculation, because basically, when you look at GDP, it's a massive equation, but I've boiled it down to 3 variables. It's the amount of people that work times the average GDP per worker times the amount of time that they work. That's really what economic output for a country is. So so basically, just to match current US GDP, at half the GDP per hour, you only need 100 million AAAs, or bipedal robots. I expect that we'll see about 10 billion bipedal robots by 2035. You're probably going to scoff at that, but do some digging. There's actually a lot more sense that when you look into that. And the cost of robots is coming down. So it won't be long, maybe a year or 2, where you can have a very good home robot, like a home servant. The Neo just came out, but that's pretty shit. But yeah, give it another year or 2, you're going to get some good ones. I can't wait to buy an Optimus bot. And so if you had a chart of organic GDP, you'll probably see this vertical line of synthetic GDP. And it's very small at the moment, but it will be vertical. I don't know what year it will overtake organic GDP, as in us humans with flesh bags. But synthetic GDP will outpace organic GDP at some point. And because it's the ultimate tech, all technology likes to spiral down to gross marginal cost. That's what technology does. Anything that makes things efficient, you have a gross marginal cost spiral. The internet is the best example of a gross marginal cost spiral. Tens of trillions of dollars of research went into the internet, and we now have access to it for like $10 a month, £10 a month. And that's what tech does. And AI will accelerate everything down that gross marginal cost so fast. And so, yeah, there will be mass deflation, and then that's every government's worst nightmare. And I think there will be a UBI, Universal Basic Income, and eventually a UHI. Yeah, so I'm running behind schedule here at the moment. I think I need to speed this up. I've got 5 minutes to get through. Oh shit, I need to really speed up. Long story short, AI is awesome. We could have a new species, Homo deus and Homo sapiens, those that choose to blend themselves with a BMI. But we've seen what happened with the Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. And again, government-backed science houses are always wrong. So this was the IEA's solar deployment projections, and this is what actually happened. It's just insane. And also the displacement graph is also interesting. So every time there's a new technology, the displacement graph happens in everything. So if you go back to the 1800s, in terms of coal, the different types of coal production, then the different types of dyes from natural to synthetic, horses and automobiles, diesel ships and airplane for transatlantic travel, then UK power from gas and coal, car tires from non-radial to radial. I still don't know what that means. Insulin development, cameras from digital to analog, or analog to digital, GMO to non-GMO for corn, video rental, TV screens from CRT to LCD. Like, pick an industry or niche, there's going to be a displacement chart, because that's what technology does. And then you get to Breaking Bad type stuff. And then that leads us to Bittensor. So, not the meth bit. But, and so this is why I really loved Bittensor. There's many reasons I love Bittensor. And there isn't a single definition. Imagine trying to explain what the internet was to a random person 30 years ago. You'd struggle, because the internet's done everything. Our whole lives are like woven and weaved into it. And you've got everything from hardcore quantum physics and mechanics to OnlyFans. Like, that's what the internet, that's how big the internet is. Like, and Bittensor will be as vast as this. At the moment, Bittensor is this AI network. And even I cringe saying AI network, because it isn't an AI network. So I'm going to try and use analogies to explain it. In its purest form, it's a decentralized framework for a marketplace of incentive mechanisms. So remember, Bitcoin has one incentive mechanism. You give me power or compute power, I'll give you Bitcoin or Satoshis. Well, imagine you had a whole network where anyone can go, right, I've got an incentive mechanism. I want to incentivize people to do stuff, and anyone can partake in that. That's what Bittensor really is. So if there's a digital commodity, a challenge, an issue, or anything, and someone can create an incentive mechanism around that challenge, you can set up your own independent AI startup on the Bittensor network. And it sounds a lot bigger than it is, but I think it is the third big network. So with the invention of TCP/IP, that led to the World Wide Web and the internet as we know it, and it created a globally scaled network of information transfer, dissemination, and relay. Then we had the Bitcoin network, which was a globally scaled network of information transfer and wealth transfer. And now we have the Bittensor network, which is a globally scaled network of information, wealth, and intelligence transfer. And so the easiest way that I personally explain it, and everyone has their different ways to explain it, but I call it an innovation incubator and value capture umbrella. That's how I have it in my head. So these are some doodles from a presentation I did a while ago. So here, imagine Alphabet, so Google, was this massive umbrella, okay? And Alphabet is really this innovation incubator. So under this umbrella, what we have are hundreds of different companies and projects. And you have big projects called YouTube and Google Maps and Google Drive and Waymo. And you have hundreds of other projects that you may not have heard, DeepMind and others. So Alphabet or Google is this massive innovation incubator. But how do you capture the value of everything that Google makes? Well, Google is a publicly traded stock, and it has a token. And the token is called Goog. So if you believe in the future of Google, and everything Google will do, or is doing now and will do, and you want to have a piece of upside in that, you go and buy Goog. And if they do well, their chart goes up. With me so far? Bittensor is identical. Bittensor is this umbrella. It's this innovation incubator. And anyone, as I said, that has a challenge or an issue they want to solve, they can create this incentive mechanism and set up your own independent AI startup. It's capped to 128 startups at the moment. The cap will lift at some point, but they're really trying to squeeze the pressure in to get all the cylinders of the engine firing nicely. And if you believe in what Bittensor is doing now and the future of what it may come, or if there's one super subnet that just breaks out and becomes a unicorn, well, the way to get a piece of that upside in the easiest way is to buy the token. It's called Tau. And then hopefully chart goes up or down, but it's an innovation incubator. And so Tau, because there's at the moment there's 128 independent AI startups, they all have their own token. So these are called subnets. So if Google has sub-companies, Bittensor has sub-networks, commonly known as subnets. And each subnet has its own token, a subnet token. And therefore, you've got 128 different tokens, which means you have the birth of a brand new market with all of its different intricacies. And so Tau is the S&P 500 of independent, distributed, decentralized AI startups. This is way bigger than you think, and we've only just begun. And so when you go get a bit more ethereal, I believe Bittensor is, as a byproduct, creating a mechanical brain. Now, in our brain is very sophisticated, and we have tendrils of capabilities. Again, I'm not being very technical here. I call them tendrils of capabilities. The fact that we know we can sense gravity, that's a tendril. A robot or an AI won't have that. Someone's got to code that shit. The fact that my lungs know how to inflate and deflate all the time, that's an algorithm somewhere up here, or it's a capability. The fact where I know where my left foot is at all times, that's a capability. AI won't have that. Someone's got to create it. And Bittensor is accidentally sort of creating this smorgasbord of AI capabilities, whether it's compute, whether it's online cloud storage to solving advanced medical breakthroughs. Bittensor will do it all. And so it is the permissionless incentive protocol. I used to call it the incentive layer, but people don't really understand what a layer is. So what does permissionless mean? It means, hey Brad, you look hungover.
No, I'm all good.
Oh, okay, fair
Just like rough.
So permissionless means anyone can participate. Anyone. You don't need anyone's permission. An incentive protocol means a challenge or a task is set, and anyone around the world can be rewarded for good work. Or even bad work, but it's up to whoever sets the challenge to make sure that good work is rewarded. And so if Bittensor is this permissionless incentive protocol, going into the weeds a little bit, you have your independent AI startup, i.e. the subnet. So if you're a subnet owner and you have this challenge you want solving, you want to fold proteins, or you want to do anything, literally any challenge or issue that you think you want to solve, you can do it. It's like an Ansari X Prize, where they're like, hey, whoever can build a commercial reusable spacecraft gets $10 million. That was the Ansari X Prize. This is the Ansari X Prize on steroids. So you have a subnet, you create a challenge. You then have miners. So in Bitcoin, the miners are people who provide compute power. Well, in Bittensor, a miner is someone that does the stuff that you're asking to be solved. Okay? That's what a miner does. They do stuff. But how do you know if the stuff that they're making or doing is good or bad? You then need teachers. You need examiners to go, good miner, bad miner. And then you rank them. So that's what validators do. They just judge shit. But it's up to the subnet owner to let the validator know how is best, how can they mark and judge the stuff that the miners are doing. And so the way I also envisage it is that Bittensor is this desert island that's just popped up in the middle of the Pacific. It doesn't do anything at the moment. Well, it does some stuff, but in order for it to be what we want it to be and turn into like a Dubai or an Abu Dhabi, a lot of work needs to be done. Because at the moment, it's just mangroves and rats. And so there are 3 phases. So at the moment, we're in phase 1. And if you were to build this mega city in the middle of the Pacific, what do you need to do? You need to do hardcore infrastructure. You need pipes and fiber optics and cables and you need and deep foundation set to build these massive skyscrapers. So hardcore infrastructure needs to go in place. That's what is happening predominantly on Bittensor right now. Hardcore infrastructure. And so that's why the general public isn't really aware of it, because they're just putting down the fiber optics and the bridges and the roads. And then one layer above that is the intelligence layer. So when you have the hardcore AI infrastructure, you can then start to get some intelligence from it. And then when you get that intelligence from the hardcore infrastructure, you can then use it to create an app, to create a killer use case, to create the subnet that breaks out into the real world and becomes a unicorn. Now, there are subnets at various stages. There are subnets way down here in the infrastructure bit, which won't, they're sort of in their cocoon. And they'll emerge as beautiful butterflies in like 2 years' time. And then there are more commercially focused subnets where they're like, okay, we're not going to solve world hunger or quantum mechanics. We can use AI to get a very fast product market fit, and we're going to start selling. And so you have some subnets up here. They may not be killer real world use case, but they're out there making real world revenue already. And so we've got 128. They're constantly coming and going, depending. Well, yeah. But sorry, there's so many layers I can go into. But here's the cool thing. Really, it's 9 months old. So just 13th of February, we created this thing called Dynamic Tau, and 128, well, it wasn't 128 back then, it was 64, but it created this new landscape where you could create a subnet, it has its own token, it's now like the S&P 500 for AI startups, but in just 9 months, Bittensor has got all of these world bests. Now, Jacob, the founder of Bittensor, says he doesn't like this chart, or this thing. And he says some of it may be not that accurate, and some of it you have to really go down in the DD to see whether what the subnet claims is actually true. But this is from my best efforts, from just reading all of their documentation, their podcasts, and all sorts of stuff. But there are over a dozen subnets already that are absolutely dicking the incumbents over. So that's bad terminology. But I had a chat with Subnet 32 the other day, and apparently there are 2 AI plagiarism, or AI detectors for text, which are, making millions in ARR. And this one, Subnet 32, is way better in many metrics, but we haven't heard of it. And they're not really commercializing it properly just yet. And there's so many other subnets that are doing really, really good things. And so today, what I really wanted to do is showcase some of the best subnets in Bittensor, and also, not just that, the ones that are really easy to understand. Because if I was to talk about Templar, for example, which has the potential to change the world of AI and absolutely punch OpenAI in the face, that's not going to sort of flower for another couple of years. And it's really hard to explain distributed pre-training. But it's a lot easier to explain, the world's cheapest cloud storage. That's really easy to understand. Like Filecoin, but better. And so this is probably the last you'll hear from me today, because the rest of the day, we're going to be talking about subnets.
Thanks for your time.
Very good to be with you, Brian, and good evening.
Now, you're a market economist.
Yes, well, most economists are market economists, Brian, to a degree these days, yes.
How do you think things are going at the moment?
Well, there's a great deal of international concern. I mean, we're taking a toweling, but things will sort themselves out, Brian. This is what a market does.
Well, can you explain to me how it all works?
How the economy works?
Well, yeah, what's the problem at the moment, for instance?
Well, what we've got at the moment is an international credit crisis.
Yes, how does that happen?
Well, I'm a bank, Brian, and I borrow money and I lend it out, and I charge more to the people I'm lending it to than I pay to the people from whom I'm borrowing it.
Well, who do you borrow money from?
Well, from, depositors, Brian. Have you got $1?
Well, yeah,
I
sure.
borrow your $1 and I give you, there's your bank balance.
$1?
$1.
Right, okay, and you pay interest to me on that?
I do, but I also charge you fees.
Well, why do you charge me fees?
Because, Brian, I'm looking after your money. Your money is secure with me. I'm a bank. I mean, this is a very important amount of money. This is probably your nest egg. It's safe with us.
And how much interest do you pay me?
Approximately the same as I'm charging you in fees.
Oh, good deal for me.
Well, your money's secure with us, Brian, and I then lend that money to businesses, and those businesses generate income. This is how we build an economy.
Yeah. And they put that income into the bank.
They do, of course, Brian, and that builds the savings pool, and we can invest more money.
Well, who do you lend that to?
Well, to people who need credit, Brian. You see, money creates more money, so if we can create money that creates more money, we're broadening the economy, we're expanding it all the time, yes.
But shouldn't people just buy the can afford?
You don't need to afford the things you're buying, Brian. You need to afford the interest on the money you need to borrow in order to buy them.
And you're charging higher rates for all this?
We do hop into them a wee bit on the credit rate, Brian. We stick the hydraulics under that because it's a slightly higher risk strategy.
Do people need to be buying these things that they can't afford?
Well, obviously they think so, Brian. I mean, these things are advertised to people as very necessary, very important and deeply, deeply attractive.
Well, who's advertising things that people don't need?
The companies we're lending the money to.
So, OK, then you bought into the US subprime housing market.
Well, Brian, so concerned are we to build a better Australia.
You helped build a worse America.
Yeah, well, that was an accident, Brian. What we were doing was investing in the international investment market.
And that's been a disaster.
It, frankly, famously, hasn't been a huge success hitherto.
Well, so what are you going to do?
Well, now you give me $700 billion immediately.
Why?
Well, because we need it, Brian. I mean, the system needs money. Imagine the economy as a body. It needs blood pumping around it, Brian.
And you haven't got any?
We haven't got any money, no.
Well, why not?
Well, we lost ours. I've just been explaining that.
Well, you're not having mine.
Mum! Brian won't let me play with his stuff.
It's the only money I've got.
You're in for it.